Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Inspired, a Project Lead the Way podcast. I'm excited today. We're gearing up for National Engineers Week and I've got two future engineers and one of the best engineering teachers in the country with us today. We're going to hear from them and maybe we'll just jump right in with that. This is an exciting topic. We've enjoyed catching up with you a little bit. Thanks for making the trip here to the 𝐼𝐴 Center. And before we get to Cammie and Kevin and give you a chance to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you're doing right now and how you got here, Chris, would just love to hear you. Quick introduction, who you are, what you do, where you do it. I had a chance to visit down in Charlotte. Didn't get a chance to see your program, but I know you're doing some really amazing work.
So this is my 13th year teaching. I actually started professionally in the project management realm, then transitioned over to math, taught math for a little bit, was actually on the other side of supporting PLTW programs, and then jumped at my first opportunity to start leading a program when I moved to Charlotte, and I'm at Hopewell High School, loving every minute of it.
Well, and the work that you're doing at Hopewell has evolved. That's been kind of one of the fun things in the conversation you all have had over the last 12 hours or so, is just hearing about what the program was like when you both were students there in the class and kind of how it's evolved now. And some of that's a result of your experience at Hopewell and the legacy that you left behind. So maybe we'll just start with a couple of introductions and then we'll jump into our first couple of questions. And Cammie, just love to hear you kind of introduce who you are, what you're doing now, and how you got there.
Yeah, so my name is Cammie Blake. I'm in my third year. I'm a junior at UNC Charlotte studying mechanical engineering. I took PLTW all 4 years of high school, actually, and I currently work in industry doing additive manufacturing. I'm on the process engineering team at Oerlikon, and we work with powdered metals and make some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I want to hear about your experience at Oerlikon and the things that you're building. You're talking about some of the CNC machines that you're working on right now as a junior in college and doing some pretty incredible work. So I want to hear more about that in a little bit. Kevin, quick introduction, where you are, what you're studying, how you got there.
Yes, I currently study civil engineering at UNC Charlotte. I really do enjoy that level of study. Even from PLTW, I always kind of drifted more towards that construction, like structural infrastructure side of engineering. And yeah, that's what I currently do and what I study. I plan on getting my bachelor's in civil engineering and possibly going further with that into structures. But on top of that, I'm also a part-time worker in industry with traffic analysis at DRMP, and I enjoy doing a lot of work there. It's really cool to kind of get my foot in the door there and kind of see like how you talk to clients when you're in the industry, and I've just really been enjoying the experiences that I get in the education.
It's a nice extension of some of your classroom experiences, both at UNC Charlotte, but then also back at Hopewell. And that you're talking about client-facing work and communication skills, and the technical knowledge is great, but it's the other skills that you've developed, both of you have developed over the last several years. So definitely want to get into the skills side of that too, because in an age of AI and all the things that are happening now, those human durable skills are more important than they've ever been. So I definitely start thinking about how we want to frame that. But maybe let's go back, Chris, and have you talk about Hopewell, what you've built there, how it's evolved. It's not the same, like day one you walked in, it looks a lot different today.
Yeah, absolutely. When thinking about Hopewell in general, I think it's almost important to talk about my PLTW experience. Like I said before, I was teaching math and I saw how successful programs like master teachers like Brian English at Nottingham were running programs unbelievably. Then when I came to North Carolina, Riverside, I think, had 8 or 9 PLTW teachers, kind of a factory of engineers, and saw how it was possible to use this vehicle to provide students an opportunity to learn about STEM. So when I came to Hopewell, I applied for a math job. I was not actually applying for engineering, and administration enrollment was definitely down. And that was something that I jumped at the opportunity to build because I saw how successful this could be and how big of an impact it can make for awesome kids like these two. So the journey continues with like core training. I hit the lottery for awesome core training teachers like Corey Duzan. Did a ton of work with Austin Williams and really rock star teachers that are so above and beyond passionate about educating kids. and then kind of leveraged my industry partners around the Hopewell community to try to provide as much as we could to, increase enrollment and then expose kids to careers that they didn't even know exist. And we took a small enrollment, kind of tripled that, and just keep raising the bar. I mean, the program changes so much when I look back. Like you said, over 12 hours ago, I completely forgot about so many experiences from what seems like a lifetime ago. Kevin's cohort was using razor blades and cardboard to make prototypes. Cami built our first 3D printers. So it's really amazing to reflect back of where we were and how far we've come as a building for future students as well.
There isn't a more important subject than math. There are probably equally important subjects, I would argue, but what happened, like the skills, applying what you're learning in algebra or trigonometry or stats, you think about the world we live in today, how important that in calculus. Is that what you were seeing? Was it the application of it in these other programs? And do you see that now?
Yeah, I think a lot of my transition from the math realm to the PLTW realm was changing my perspective of what I want kids to be able to do. And I think the PLTW Foundation gives the teacher a lot of awesome experiences doing that. And moving to a facilitator and kind of using that activity project problem-based approaches is powerful because you're not really getting students to be problem doers, you're getting kids to be problem solvers. And it's a lot less of trying to kind of get all kids at one finish line, and really it opens up. It's not boring at all because you're gonna have like I said, different experiences with each time you run through it. So because kids are gonna bring you different places in the classroom, not only as what you're technically trying to do in the engineering lesson, but also the teamwork approach, the communication approach, and that's really getting kids closer to being productive citizens and doing what they want to do.
Well, and some of it probably comes back to what's the problem that Cami or Kevin or the other student, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And then, because it's not all the same algebra standards or whatever the math would be, like you're using different elements of, core academic content depending on the problem that you're trying to solve. And that's one of the magic parts of it, I think, too, is the identification of a problem that's worth solving. And so that's a lot of what you've done. No doubt I want to come back and hear more about how the classroom, and your memories of the classroom I think will be really, really interesting. But maybe let's hear a little bit about how, here you are, junior in college, started with this high school experience. What inspired you? When did you know engineering was something that you wanted to pursue? And talk a little bit about that path, and then I want to hear the same thing from you, Kevin.
Yeah, it took a while. I think in elementary school, I wanted to do what my mom did. She's a stay-at-home mom, so I was like, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then I was kind of pushed away from that answer, pick something, professional-wise. And so I was like, okay, lawyer. And that was maybe middle school. And so going into high school, I was like, I don't know, I guess I just take more classes. But we were prompted to choose a CTE pathway. And so out of all the options, engineering stood out to me, and that was, of course, PLTW's pathway. And I started taking those classes, and it was so different from, the regular, you have a worksheet, you have a textbook. And I was actually working, and I was solving actual issues and getting to see what I was doing in a physical form, and I loved it. And then I started doing robotics outside of school. And so going into college, it was a no-brainer. I loved what I was doing, and I had been doing it for so long. Perfect. Yeah. That's exactly where I want to go. And I've taken that, and now I work in industry. I've built, like Desmond mentioned earlier, the 3D printers that we have, and now I work on multi-million-dollar, huge printers and make some really exciting parts that I didn't think I was going to touch this soon, but because of that experience and because of what I was able to talk about, that I'd worked on.
So 2 questions as a follow-up to that. So one, it sounds like you were a little surprised, because I think a lot of young people, when you're like, okay, you've got to choose a career, you got to think about what you want to be. And we ask young people those questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? Or what? So you identified lawyer. Mm-hmm. But then somehow, you were encouraged, counseled to go into these pathways. Great advice, in my opinion. And I think we're seeing more young people choose CTE now than ever before because we realize like the end goal isn't college necessarily or workforce. It's being able to build the skills to go do meaningful work and solve problems, being a problem solver. So, and that's at the heart of what we do. It sounds like you were a little surprised though, once you got into that pathway that, whoa, I like this.
I was surprised. I really didn't know what to expect because it just wasn't something on my
Yeah.
radar, and I hadn't done anything like that in middle school or elementary school. Or you have those core classes that aren't structured that way. And so when I was getting to actually work hands-on, it was so exciting to see what goes into that. And, oh, this is math that I already know. And I remember Mr. Desmond made us do a review of some simple math. I'm like, I can do this. And then he's like, yeah, so now you can build this robot or you can work on this project. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And then I kept taking those courses and doing more projects and working on teams, and it just worked with
that's great.
my skill set.
Well, the other part of what you said a moment ago was the CNC mills that you're working on now at Oerlikon.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing I wanted to hear you talk about for a second. In the Project Lead the Way experience, our team does an amazing job. We got a great team of curriculum writers, but they're not working in isolation. They're working as part of a team to build the experience for you. They're also working with industry advisors to help us make sure, does this problem that we're putting in front of young people, does it match up with industry expectations? Is this the way this work happens in the manufacturing world or in the defense industry or in aerospace, you name it. So those advisors are critical to us, make sure we put a relevant and continue to put an update, a relevant experience in front of you. You were building things in Mr. Desmond's class. You made the transition to Oerlikon. You're there as a college student. How was that transition from the experiences you had at Hopewell to the experiences you're having now, not just at college, but at Oerlikon? Was that transition challenging? Was it easier for you because of your experiences? Just talk about that a little bit.
It was pretty simple. I think I put it in a pretty good manner last night. We were speaking about it. I learned G-code in class in high school. I used that those same skills. I didn't even have to relearn it to work in the machine shop at my college. And going into Oerlikon, I was training other people how to use the CNCs at our company and what programs we run and things like that. And I was only able to get up to that point so quickly because of the base knowledge that I had. There's no formal training. It's more, you enter a workspace, this is your job, we need you to figure this out. And so I was using everything that I had known ever in my life at that point to figure out, at least get me to the point of getting to the resources that I need to solve the problem and manage the task at hand. And so for the CNCs, I had that base understanding of what those machines are.
So, sorry, you're not only using these multi-million-dollar CNC mills at Oerlikon, you're training other people how to use them?
Yeah, I write our work instructions
That's amazing.
on how to operate them and the workflows that we follow.
Love that. Gosh, that's amazing. How about that? That's think about the other things though for you, and just at this point in your career, you don't have your undergrad degree yet, but all these things that are on the horizon for you. That
Sometimes it surprises me.
Yeah,
You're gonna let me do this?
No, but but you're capable of. Nobody rises to low expectations, right? Like, so I think about the things, and especially now, you've learned this a couple times, that there is no limit to what you're capable of doing. And so just the experiences you're having, I think it's going to be fun to kind of see what happens over the next several years. So, all right, Kevin, let's hear early spark. How did you get to the point where you knew this is what you wanted to study?
Yeah, so I would say my spark was as early as 3, 4. I always knew that I wanted to understand the why. I always took things apart. My parents hated that I took things apart. I always wanted to put things together. I mean, any part of that construction side, I really was infatuated with it. I remember having like an erector set, Lincoln logs, all this type of stuff just to like build. And then when I started going into education, even as far as elementary school, I always gravitated toward these STEM classes, this science, technology, engineering, mathematics, English, history, not something I always found interesting, but these STEM classes kind of connected my interest to a career. And furthermore, in high school, even with PLTW, Mr. Desmond kind of helped me see that the stuff that I enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis is also a career option for me. And like the more I got to explore that and the more I got to see like what I enjoy doing in life, like in my personal life For example, like I am currently working with my family on building a cabin, a 16 feet by 16 foot cabin. And I'm talking to my teacher, Mr. Desmond, about this, and he's like, "You're doing like real world things, and this could be a career." And I was like, "Well, I love doing this. I really, really enjoy this, and you're telling me I can do this as a job." So for me, it was just a no-brainer. Engineering has always been kind of something I gravitated towards, and I always really loved it. I mean, really any part of it. I just happen to find civil the most interesting. But yeah, early on, I really, really loved engineering, and I think I've just been able to develop and understand how I can connect that. And I don't know, I just always have a smile on my face whenever I can create and do these projects, you know. But that for me is kind of where my engineering kind of started off.
You're building, you've got technical knowledge, you have skills, and you're doing things that not everyone can do. And I think you've recognized that. And what is pretty wonderful is when you find yourself, you're doing something that you enjoy, you're good at it, there's a market for it, there's an opportunity for you to do that and then, you know, live a high quality of life and help others. I mean, I think that's a lot of what I hear you talking about too. So Chris, this has got to be great to hear former students coming back and talking to you about their experiences and what that's meant for you. Like, you talked about the work at Hopewell and what you saw when you got there, how you wanted to build it. You've got the foundation, the Project Lead the Way experience, you've got the training, you've got the connection to great teachers. You mentioned Corey, we were talking about Brian Bobbitt earlier. It's just, our Master Teacher Network is amazing. It's 500 teachers strong, people, the best teachers you'll ever meet. And not just the master teachers, but you know, we're working with 100,000 teachers across the country, people who are helping young people get excited about and prepared for life. But there are other things you're doing that are really powerful too, like the connections to business and industry. You were talking about your internship. I know you talked about your internship a little bit. How are you making those experiences possible? The other thing you were talking about too was a little bit about how you connect alumni back with current students to help them understand their options.
Yeah, for sure. So every course that I teach, and I did this in math as well, but every course that I teach starts and ends with the same question, which is, why should we hire you? And the reason that I share that with all of my students, and you guys probably are sick of hearing this at this point, but the reason I start and end that is that was my first interview question right out of college, and I really struggled answering it, and I did not get that job. So my goal for all of my students is essentially, how do I allow students to be able to answer that question, and knowing that answer is going to evolve? Because if you heard Cammie and Kevin's answer, you know, as freshmen, it changes throughout their process. But constantly reflecting back, you know, adults don't know what they want to do, so kids shouldn't need to be doing that as well. And as students progress throughout the entire program, I check in with them. I try to do it, you know, once every 2 weeks, and I'm able to try to figure out, you know, how to expose them to the different careers. And PLTW does a great job of exposing kids to careers they don't even know exist. So the awesome part is kind of not necessarily trying to get kids to pick what's offered. It's more of make an educated decision of what you want to do. I show, like, I don't have a have-to job, I have a get-to job, and I love what I do, and I want them to do that. And so my goal, kind of as we progress throughout the semester, is getting to know what it is that their goals are, and then how do I help them get there. And Huntersville has so much industry within engineering as well as manufacturing. I am able to kind of connect those dots sometimes, not every time. I wish I was better there. But where the real gold has been is when I no longer have to say or describe or tell kids to Google things. I can say, this is Kevin, he was in that seat before. This is Cammie, they were in that seat and they're doing this, getting paid to do this. Please have that conversation with them. And we're trying to have that perpetual conversation going, because like we talked about, you know, kids hear things differently from their parents, they hear things differently from their peers, they hear things differently from their teachers, and that setup has not only helped me continue to enjoy what I do, but also the delayed gratitude in education is amazing, and that network just keeps bringing me back for more, I guess.
You know, one of the things you talked about, this career exposure. So we've really worked hard, our team, I mentioned earlier, the the team working on the curriculum every day, they've worked now, there's something like 300 careers highlighted in the curriculum and tied to specific activities, projects, and problems. And for a long time, you were talking about, how did you get exposed to the idea of engineering? It sounds like these courses helped you. For a long time, what I would hear from students, whether it was in biomed, computer science, engineering, they had a parent, they had an older sibling. That was their path to that exposure. We've tried to address that because we don't want family experiences, zip code, those kinds of things to limit students, opportunities or the things they think they could do. So we've infused a lot of that in the classroom. But the research is clear though. There's no more trusted source for students today than classroom teacher. The classroom teacher, because the relationship you have with them, you're the most trusted source for career advice, college advice. The thing that you're describing here is something that I don't think we do enough of. It's sort of near peer support. So you've had a chance, it sounds like recently, to host students from Hopewell at UNC Charlotte. And even if you didn't give it then, what kind of advice do you have for young people, or what would you share back with them as they're 15, 16, 17 years old, thinking about all those things that are on the horizon for them?
Yeah, so we did get to speak to a bunch of students recently on our campus, actually. And I think speaking to them, they were very excited to go into engineering, which was exciting to see. But the main advice that I give and that I would continue to give is to be ready to fail, be prepared to be persistent and go through those things, and that it's natural, it's part of the process, it's how you learn, it's where you grow. I did my capstone design project, and I was told that there are still pieces and iterations of my design laying around the lab, and there were so many
Learning
different there were so many different prints that I did and things that I had to change. But in the end, I got to the final product, and even now I worked on my an air engine, and I kept messing up this flywheel, and I was so upset about it, but I kept going, changed my plan, how I was going to use this lathe and cut this piece, and my engine ended up being 400 RPMs faster than the goal. So
that was recently at Oerlikon. That's some work you were doing, or is
that
that
was that was at Charlotte.
So what you just described to me is one of the most important distinctions between what most students are experiencing in school and what students are experiencing in Project Lead the Way and other project-based pathways. Most teaching and learning, most school experiences right now are about right answers, and then we're going to move on, quiz, test, move on, quiz, test, move on. Whoever gets the most right answers wins. If you don't get the right answers, you're digging yourself into a hole, or you're getting put in a hole that it's harder and harder to come out of. Yeah. Well, you just described it. That's life, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you're going to have setback after setback, and some weeks, months are going to feel worse than others. But building up that resilience, that persistence, that's a skill.
Yeah, it can be a hard transition.
Yeah, it's hard.
It was something familiar for sure. So.
Yeah, I love that, and it gives you confidence too.
Yeah, it's possible at the end.
When you've done it and you've overcome that,
yeah.
Then the next time you go into it a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger the next time. I love that. It's a great lesson. Advice, things that you would did share?
Yeah, for me, I think, actually, I'm going to change that. I know that high schoolers don't put enough emphasis. We're going to do that. I know that high schoolers don't put enough emphasis on networking. And I have two very specific examples on what I mean by that. One part of networking that I don't think is emphasized enough is how young it can start. I mean, I'm sitting here right now from a high school program that I joined an alumni program for. And that right there is just one small thing of networking. Don't burn any bridges. Everyone here wants to help you. We don't understand how social we are as a group of people, even from Indiana to North Carolina. We have this connection, and to network is just so natural. And that just brings me to my next point. Networking is so much more than you think it is. It's not you sitting down in a formal location like we are now. Yes, it is a form of networking, and that's what people see it as, but it goes way beyond that. And my example for that is my internship. I got that internship opportunity from ski club. I went skiing with a friend of mine that he knew someone that had an open position at a firm, and they needed someone that, the education that I was in, they needed my spot. And that was the networking that I went through. And like in high school, you're not thinking, oh, I'm gonna join ski club and get an internship from a friend of mine that I went snowboarding with. Like, I just think if we put more emphasis on that networking, we can see how much it helps you. Like, I've been able to grow a lot more than I thought I ever could just because of these small connections I thought would never help me. And I even myself, these have blown away my expectations of networking. Like, in high school, you only think of it as I'm talking to a company and they know who I am. That's my network. Not as my friends have connections to things that I'm interested in. But yeah, that's my thing to high schoolers. Never burn a bridge, and you need to understand the importance of networking.
These are two really great pieces of advice. You know, the approach to failure, building confidence, working through challenges like that, and then networking. This is a piece of advice I've given my own kids recently, and especially if you're in high school and if you're on a college campus, you're surrounded by a lot of really amazing people and people who are going to head off into really interesting areas of work and life. And so it's a great opportunity. There may never be a better opportunity than what you can do on campus if you choose to get out and meet people, and not just through a traditional outlet, but like you said, through some of the other clubs and things that are available on almost every college campus. So Chris, this has got to be great. Like, you're hearing from students.
My cup's pretty full right now. Again, but it's been full since we started the process.
Yeah.
I mean, reconnecting is just amazing.
This is the thing I think about. Last week we were in Las Vegas presenting a Teacher of the Year award, and I wish every teacher could receive the accolades that they deserve. Charlotte-Mecklenburg really, in my experience, has been a really strong partner, and we've tried to support their work as an exemplar. What's the next step? What's on the horizon? And what does some of that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think for Hopewell as a whole, the number one thing that I have and I want to focus on is to continue to do what we're doing. I think from this process, it is amazing to look at these pictures and look back at where we were and how far we've come. And I think looking to the future, each cohort continues to raise the bar, and I want to make sure that we continue to do that and continue to utilize the families and the community that Hopewell has to offer in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools for sure. But the bigger piece that I have learned and definitely want to aspire to expand is the industry partners. I think from hearing back what your memories were, it's amazing to solidify what was so impactful and so meaningful. And it's very clear to me that project-based industry work is helping the next generation so much more. And in addition to the experience that's memorable, it's also setting the next generation up so much more. And I think kind of combining what PLTW is offering and then inviting industry in to work with kids is going to not only help the kids in the chair, but it helps the whole community. I mean, if you had told me 6 years ago that I was going to have experiences building things that you all made go from your brains to physical, I would definitely not believe you. But industry is what's going to make that happen, because I'm never going to be a master of the amount of thoughts that of the kids in the chair. But I think my main goal is to try to do as much industry partnered projects as I possibly can. We're fortunate to have a lot of industry partners, but I really would love to expand that to offer some other experiences for future kids as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important connection, powerful for young people to see the breakdown, of the walls of the classroom to these experiences out in the community. I think that's one of the most important things that we do. No doubt there are easier ways to get a diploma and move on to the next thing, but I don't know that there's anything as impactful as what you've described, as what you've shared today. One other thing I'll just kind of highlight, like, you're already on this amazing trajectory in your lives. The things that you're going to do are going to be phenomenal. One of the things I've learned, I've been at Project Lead the Way for 15 years. Over those 15 years, I've worked with a lot of business and industry partners, other nonprofit leaders all around the country, people who are working not just in the US, but globally. And there are a couple of college majors that have stood out to me. I go back, and certainly people have gone back and added master's degrees and advanced degrees. There are two undergraduate degrees that I see in a lot of successful executives in companies. One is English, and as an English undergrad, that stood out to me. I love that. And I think that goes back to communication skills and how important it is to be able to, and not just communicate, but to interpret and to understand not just the written language, but other elements of communication. So that one I love. The other one is engineering. And I think that makes sense, right? Like problem solvers. We want problem solvers in these big roles. So the things that you've done already are phenomenal. The things that are on the horizon for you is unlimited. Your future is unlimited. So I can't thank you both enough for being here. Cammie, Kevin, Chris, great to see you again. What you're doing is remarkable. I'm excited we're going to get to share this story. So thanks for doing that. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Inspired, Project Lead the Way's flagship podcast. We're celebrating National Engineers Week. I can't think of a better way to celebrate than to have a couple of future engineers with us and one of the best engineering teachers in the country. Thanks for joining. Please be sure to follow, like, share Project Lead the Way's podcast on all the channels where you're looking for good content around K-12 education and workforce and life preparation. See you next time on Inspired.